the class, otherwise we'll fall back. I'm already a little late. Okay. So I wanted to make one very important point about John Locke, which I didn't yesterday. Uh, you remember we were talking about inequalities coming up in the second stage of the state of nature. Okay. And I told you, he says, don't compare A with C like this. Don't compare A with C like this, and don't compare A with C like this. What you have to compare is C here and C here. This C is much higher, right? Now, there is also, I told you that Locke believed that society does not create inequality. Okay, for him, inequalities are created by nature. Please remember what I told you about rationality. He said all human beings are equal to the extent that everybody is endowed with rationality. But all human beings are not equally rational. Okay, some people are more rational than others. And he says those who are more rational than others get ahead in life. So what he actually used was a metaphor of a race. Okay, which he used it in a different way, but I will use it in a way that you will understand it much better. If you look at a race, which is what do we say? Let's say 100 meters um, running race. Okay, athletics, 100-meter running race, you will find that people are given blocks on which they stand like this, and a gun is fired and they run, right? Now, everybody who is running in the Olympic race, let's talk about the Olympics. They are all capable of running. You won't see me there. I can't run. Leave alone, I can't run. I can't even bend like that for that posture. So I'm already out. But those who are running the race are all capable of running. So why are you making them take that position and firing a gunshot? You are ensuring equality of beginning, which means everybody will get the same equality of beginning. Opportunities are available to everybody equally in the beginning. Whatever inequalities come, Locke says, are inequalities of consequence. How? Go back to the race. If you're Usain Bolt, you will run faster than anyone else in the world. Right? You've heard of Usain Bolt, I hope. He's been the champion of 100 meters and 200 meters running. And before him, there was Carl Lewis. Okay, they were great runners. And they won Olympic medals. They won all kinds of medals. So they run faster. Because they run faster, they win the race. So that is the inequality of consequence. Those who run the fastest will win the race. Now, if you take Olympics, they have these things called heats. Heats are qualifying because finally there are only 8 lanes on the track. But if 40 people have registered to run. Then 10 races are held, or whatever number. And the top two from each heat is sent into the final. Top two from each heat. They are sent into the finals. There may be a semi-final if there are more people. Okay. Then those who qualify in the semi-final, they go to the final. So those, everybody is ensuring an equality of beginning. But if somebody runs faster, and that is his ability, you can't question that. You cannot question that ability. If he, you can't say Usain Bolt shouldn't win. Why is he winning all the time? He's winning because he can run faster. Similarly, inequalities are created in society by nature because some people are more rational than others. Those who are more rational have a better way of taking care of themselves. But you have to locate this in the context of a green field situation. This logic won't work anymore. Like I told you yesterday, Mukesh Ambani's children and a beggar's children. Why beggar's children? Even if I had children, I don't, but I brought up two people as my sons. So I call them my children. They don't have the same advantages that Mukesh Ambani's sons have. Okay. You are the son of a school teacher. You don't have the same advantage that my sons will have because I earn a little more than your father. And we didn't choose to be born. You didn't become your father's son by choice. I didn't become my father's son by choice. It is what is called accident of birth. We don't choose to be born as something. We are born as something. That's all. So you can't say you're giving equality of beginning to everyone. You're not at all giving equality of beginning to people. So today, the logic of equality of beginning and inequality of consequence does not stand. But in Lockean times, it did. Because it presented people with so many opportunities. Yesterday, I talked to you about the high-tech city example. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I want to close Locke now. So Locke, since it was a greenfield situation, everybody, including the kings, the feudal lords, everybody was getting impoverished. Those people who could look for new opportunities, the Marco Polos who came all the way to China, India, and started mercantile capitalism, these people took that opportunity. They underwent difficulties. Okay, they underwent many difficulties and therefore they became rich. Those who didn't take those chances didn't become rich. And like I told you, in America, there was gold rush. Some people dismissed it as rubbish, but the gold rush was real. I mean, that availability of gold was real. So those who decided, let me take a chance, they did well. Those who said there is no gold, you can't find gold like that, didn't do well. There is a film called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It is somewhere set in this gold rush kind of a thing. So the main protagonist in that film, played by Jack Nicholson, This man is digging to see if he can get gold, and people are watching, and he doesn't find gold. So he gets up, dusts himself, and as he's walking off, people laugh. So he turns back and says, "Why are you laughing?" So they say, "You thought you'll find gold." So he says, "Yes, I thought I'll find gold, but I didn't." Okay. What if I had found it? You people didn't try. At least I tried. If I had found gold, would you be laughing at me? So that is the greenfield situation that we are talking about. Okay. It is not applicable now, but it was perfectly applicable in Lockean times. So Locke should not be treated as an idiot, which some people will try to tell you. So let's get to Rousseau. But before I get to Rousseau, before I start talking about Rousseau, I must tell you that in England itself, even before Locke and Adam Smith really started this pro private property uh, thing of theirs, in England itself, there were different movements against private property. Okay, Sir Thomas More's book Utopia. Okay, utopia is a Greek word which actually has all kinds of meanings. Sometimes it means it is a wonderful land, sometimes it means a cursed land. But Sir Thomas More took the meaning that it is a wonderful land where people are living an equalitarian and happy life. They are leading a commodious life. So this book was very popular in England. And from this book, people were inspired to say private property should not exist. So there are different people, different groups that fought against private property, even before Locke and during Locke's time. These people, I'm not going to go into the details of that. I'm just going to give you the names of these groups and what they did in brief. One of the groups was called the Ranters, Ranters. To rant in English basically means that you are shouting against something. You are shouting against something. That is called ranting. These people were the ranters. So what were they shouting about? They would gather in public places. They would stand in an elevated uh, they would stand in an elevated room, and they not room, I'm sorry, elevated platform, and from there they would shout, "No private property, everything should belong to everyone." So they made these fiery speeches. They were called the ranters. Then there was the most, what should we say, most widely prevalent movement, which was called the levelers. Levellers. American English will put only LERS, but please write English, the British English, which is Levellers. Levelers. Levelers are those who believed that society should be level. There should be no ups, there should be no downs. There should be no ups and downs. All should be equal. If it is horizontal, see, when you put things vertically like this, then somebody is at the top, somebody is here. If you take this as the bottom, then somebody is here. But if you put it like this, okay, my hand is not very straight and I get tremors. So here, this is a level. We talk about level playing ground. Everybody should be given the same playing field. Those were the levelers. The levelers were a long drawn movement. It was a very, very long drawn movement against private property. They argued everywhere, even in intellectual forums. They infiltrated in intellectual forums and they argued for a society that does not have private property, a society that is not based in hierarchy where somebody is at the top and somebody is at the bottom. They said, no, we shouldn't have such a society. Private property will create that society and we shouldn't have it. They were also influenced by Sir Thomas More's Utopia. Okay. Then there were those who were the more militant variety, who were called the diggers. Okay. The diggers basically, if you said, and in the primary form of private property anywhere, even till today, the primary form, the most important form of private property is land. Okay, I live in a house that my grandfather built. I have inherited today. I didn't do anything, but I have inherited it. Okay, this is now in my name. I have inherited it. This is the Mukesh Ambani situation. Okay, I did nothing, but I have a house against my name. Now, if I try to sell this house, nobody will pay for the house. The house has no value. It's an old house. It's an extremely old house, 50 years or 60 years old. Why will people pay for that? What they want is the land. Why? So they can demolish this house and build flats and make money, right? So land becomes the most important of all private properties. It's the primary private property. Just by the way, I'm not trying to sell this house. My father told me this house to you is like what Charminar is to Hyderabad. You can't sell Charminar. You don't try to make money out of this house. I said, yes. Anyway, so now the main thing is they said, the diggers, if somebody said, this is my land, I have occupied it, they immediately went into that so-called private property. They dug deep holes and sat in those holes. Holes means not small ones, big ones, craters. They dug craters and people occupied those craters and said, this is not your land. This is not your land. This is everybody's land. So that's why they were called the diggers. Diggers. So the ranters, the levelers, and the diggers, they were all against private property. They were all inspired by the principles of utopian socialism of Sir Thomas More. Okay, so you must understand that Even in Locke's time, there was resistance, despite the fact that you can exonerate him on various grounds, such as it being a greenfield situation. Everybody had some kind of equality in opportunity. But the philosopher who follows him, Jean Jacques Rousseau, the third of the social contractualists, Jean Jacques Rousseau is a Frenchman. Some people say he was a philosophe. Okay. The philosophe was a tradition that existed in France. And this particular tradition basically had a number of people in it, very prominent people. It had Voltaire, it had Baron de Montesquieu, it had Jean Baudin, written Jean Bodin. Jean Baudin wrote about sovereignty. So it was a philosophe is French for philosopher in English. So people include Rousseau in the tradition of the philosophers. So I just put it up there, though some will dispute it. Some will dispute it and say, no, he was not a typical philosopher. Okay, it's like they would argue about what is his name now? Like people argue about Socrates. Yeah, generically speaking, he is a sophist, but otherwise he is not like the rest of the sophists, right? It's like that with Rousseau, some people say. Some people say Rousseau was not a philosopher in the tradition of the other people that I have mentioned. Voltaire, Baron de Montesquieu, Baron, not Baron, Baron de Montesquieu, which is Baron of Montesquieu. Okay, and he was a definitely an 18th century philosopher who was very influential. He was born and brought up as a citizen of the city state of Geneva, which is today in Switzerland, but it abuts what we call France. Okay, it was a city state in those days. Not everybody could become citizens. He became. So he started off as a Protestant Christian because Geneva gave citizenship to select few. There were some criteria, and one of the criteria that was there was that you should be a Protestant Christian. So he was a Protestant Christian. Then he fell in love with a lady and went to Rome and lived there and became a Catholic for some time. And then he came back to Geneva, and to keep his citizenship alive, he moved back to being a Protestant Christian. Let's not get more into his biographic details. He is one of the most influential figures of the 18th century. Baron de Montesquieu, if you noticed, I'm sure you remember the separation of powers. Baron de Montesquieu completely misunderstood England. Okay, he misunderstood England. He saw there was an executive, he saw there was a legislature, and he saw there was a judiciary. So he thought there are three separate organs of government, and powers are divided in the three separate organs of government. So he thought there was separation of powers. He said that if you divide powers like this among three organs, then one organ will act as a check and balance on the power of the other. Then why am I saying he misunderstood? Please remember that in England, if you have to become a member of an executive, you first have to be